be it. Now, ever since her sentence, the right wing have tried to make it out that she is some kind of political prisoner or martyr. They've spun a narrative of two-tiered justice. Yet for a while, they omitted the very important fact that she pled guilty to the charge. There was no chance for a judge and jury to give a verdict when the suspect gives an admission of guilt. Now, one can have a conversation if her sentence was too long. If I'm going to be completely honest, my personal view is it was too long. I don't think 31 months was fair. I think maybe a couple of months. But regardless, right, it is incorrect to question this sentence as two-tier. Now, two-tier absolutely exists, but not in the way the right wing spin it. If you're a climate activist, you get 5-year jail sentences just for discussing a protest on Zoom. Now, predictably, ever since her release, the beginning of a right-wing grifting career has already become apparent. Would you look at that? Despite being released from prison for committing a crime of incitement, Connolly has run straight into the arms of the right-wing media. Not only that, but Connolly might be meeting with the Trump administration. Breaking, Lucy Connolly will meet with Trump administration officials tomorrow and is preparing legal action against the police. I mean, I don't know what grounds she has to sue them. But anyways, I mean, Noffel, what can we expect? I mean, a brand new Lucy Connolly podcast or a slot on GB News?
I think we might get a slot on the Nelk Boys podcast first before any of those. But it's really funny that it's just been, day of release and Lucy Connolly is already being eaten up by these right-wing medias and all these different influencers, along with, which I've seen on social media, along with the Trump administration and their obsession with free speech. But we need to make it really clear, this is not two-tier policing in the slightest, right? Lucy Connolly incited racial hatred to a group of asylum seekers, innocent people that are fleeing war and persecution, and made it very, very clear that if it makes her racist to burn down a hotel of such people, then so be it. Along with the fact that when the police were searching for other, messages that were on her communications device, such as her phone, she had made multiple statements about Somali men being rapists and other minorities being just as vile. So this is a grown adult who is complaining about the fact that she served just 9 months of her 31-month sentence, pled guilty to it, and is now a political prisoner. And what I find really interesting is Connolly mentions the fact that the UK has always been a free speech haven, but it's not. She was charged under the Malicious Communications Act, which came in 2003, but also incitement to incite racial hatred as a public order offence, which has been around just as long as her. It was brought in 1986, and Connolly was born in 1984. So this is a complete mischaracterization of Britain's legal system, which has always been like this. And I think it's the very fact that at this moment in time, it's very easy to capitalize off the fact that Britain's completely broken down economically. People are looking for answers, and people genuinely think that any move towards the right is actually being taken away and is actually discouraged by the Labour government. Whereas we know on the left that Labour have done everything to capitulate to it. So I'd be really interested to, see going forward, what exactly is it that the narrative BB News will push and Connolly will push, maybe even the Trump administration will push towards where the UK is headed. Because I don't know about you, I can see a massive debate on free speech coming.
Yeah, it's interesting that. I mean, we can discuss about free speech because I think we need to have a conversation on what free speech actually entails. A lot of people don't understand it, and I think particularly the right wing. The reason why I say that is because the right wing have never been in favour of free speech. It's always been their speech and that's it. They become very, very authoritarian when you say something that they disagree with, right? But when it comes to free speech, you can say a lot of things, but also you can criticise that. And they say, God, I'm being cancelled, but it's my free speech to criticise that. In terms of apparently suing the police, I mean, what grounds does Connolly have? How can she sue the police? She was arrested and then she pled guilty. This makes no sense. What grounds does she have?
I think it's a spectacle. I think it's all about creating yourself as an anti-establishment figure for people to buy into this idea that, people like you and me, your average person, despite the fact she's married to a Tory councillor, are being persecuted for waving a British flag, for example, or saying things which are just branded as common sense. And I think it's interesting, it leans into the Trump administration as well, where, if we saw at the Brussels Security Conference, JD Vance talked about how generally in Europe there's this looming sort of feeling that free speech is no longer a thing. Whereas, like I've said, we have always had these laws since, the mid 80s. And so the way I see it is it's all about creating this image of your average British person that's really concerned about what's going on, rather than the fact that two-tier policing doesn't look like persecuting people for wanting to burn down a hotel of innocent people, which if happened would be a terrorist attack, right? It's more so about the fact that free speech in itself by these right-wing press, by these politicians, it was mainly used to say, look, if you are in cahoots with what the establishment is saying, then by all means say whatever you want. But when it comes to being protesting in favor of Palestine action, when it's to do with protesting against things like the Online Safety Act, when it's to do with protesting against just general things, right? That is not allowed, and that will not fly. So we need to be really clear on where the two-tier policing really is, because it's not against the right, it's in favor of the right. It's actually against the left. And these people are essentially the establishment putting on a cloak saying that they're the average person, when in fact they're just vying for them and batting for them.
What I find quite funny about this as well is if Lucy Connolly feels like she's being mistreated by the government, right, she could use the ECHR to say, look, I feel like I've been persecuted. I feel like my rights have been attacked, which is funny because the right wing want to leave the ECHR. But this is exactly it. This is where their calls for the ECHR is another grift, right? It's a political calculation that when it comes, if we were to leave it, right, then what the government says you kind of have to accept. There's no other legal body that stands with you. But ironically, she could actually go to them. Now, I don't know if she'd be successful or not, because I think she's wrong on this, of course. But there is that extra body there that can say, hold on a second, we need to see if she's in breach of human rights here. I think these people want to leave it. These people want to leave it.
Yeah. I think, and there is a sense of irony there, which is, Lucy Connolly as herself is not someone that is a part of the media establishment or necessarily the government, but generally speaking, she's more or less a normal person. And it's really these sort of stories you see on the right, which is just your average person. And we saw this with Carl Rittenhouse, for example, in the US, where it's your average person who then out of nowhere gets a bunch of capital injected into their bank account, and they're appearing on all these different podcasts as this working class hero. And that is something that could happen to Connolly. And the deep irony is, if it doesn't, because we don't really have that sphere in the UK, then when she genuinely wants to protest against something that is against her, and we all know that reform, for example, or anyone that she might cozy up to is not for the working person. When someone's genuine rights are breached, then it will be people that have been misled under the right that would say, wow, that ECHR thing, I really wish I had it. And I really, really wish that I just would have taken my sentence and shut the fuck up. So I have no sympathy for her. She is a grown adult. She knows what she did. And this is one of the rare scenarios where I will be happy to say, we told you so.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.